All right, good evening, everyone, and happy Friday, Red Friday. Remember, everyone's still deployed. My name is Hiram Figueroa. I am the founder and the host of LinkedIn Perspective or LinkedIn Live, and I'm going to be having a nice conversation today with Bryan Bataglia and Dave Bull Gurfein as well. These are two gentlemen that I truly respect and appreciate for a number of reasons. We're all in the Marine Corps. We all come from different scopes of work in the Marine Corps. But the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about today is the legacy and the journey of getting Major James Capers Medal of Honor. And with that being said, I'm going to introduce Bryan Bataglia. And Bryan, go ahead. Let's have it. Please introduce yourself and tell you a little bit of a story about yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks, Hiram. And this intro of myself is going to be certainly very short because it's not our point of main effort to being invited on the show. And thank you for having us, by the way. But I've served nearly 37 years in the Corps and grew up in a myriad of duties. I first started out in the infantry, and as I proceeded my way up, I had channeled into the first sergeant and sergeant major category of rank and file. And that, led me to some positions of seniority, added responsibility, and then I, capped my military career off at the Pentagon in 2011, having the pleasure of working for General Martin Dempsey, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and in a few more months with General Joe Dunford. I retired in August of 2016, and that's my story.
All right. Bull, please introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Hiram. I appreciate having us on. It's a great opportunity to teach people about Major Capers. I'm retired, served prior enlisted infantry officer for 25 years, and continue to fight our work rights.
So I know you're having a little bit of mic time. So both Bull and Bryan, I know from the Marine Corps, but here's the biggest thing that I want to be able to channel. We want to know what happened to Major James Capers. What is the challenges, right? And why is it that he deserves the Medal of Honor, right? The biggest thing that we want to know. So Bryan, can you unpack that and why you think he deserves the Medal of Honor? How did that story come up from
yeah, I'd love to. I think we're all going to find out why he deserves it. It's important to take your viewers back to his service in Vietnam at Phu Loc, and that will allow your viewers to make their own choice as to if and not they feel that Major Capers is worthy of our nation's highest award. And I think the answer will be collectively and unanimously yes. Let me say, Hiram, to everyone that I'm going to tell you right now, before we get into it, you're going to find out that we as a U.S. military, we're very, very fortunate to have Jim Capers on our team. This is not the kind of guy that you want to be rolling against you as an adversary. That's the kind of gentleman we're talking about here. So I'm going to take you back to 1967, specifically the dates of March 31st to April 3rd. Capers enlisted in the Corps just like Bull did. He made it to the rank of staff sergeant, and then while in Vietnam, he was battlefield commissioned. That tells you one thing of his exceptional performance in combat, that he warrants and was promoted to second lieutenant. So he takes out his team. It's titled and labeled the Team Broad-Minded. They go deep behind enemy lines, marking various routes to this North Vietnamese NVA regimental headquarters. And then during that time, of course, in the environment that where he and his team engaged in several to multiple firefights. But specifically, I want to take you to the last day there in Phu Loc on April 3rd. Unfortunately, his team was ambushed. And being ambushed was not an uncommon tactic by either side during that time. But he was ambushed, he and his team, by a pretty superior-sized enemy force. Every Marine he had, to include himself, was wounded. Capers himself, Hiram, he took, I think, 17 shrapnel wounds from head to toe, 2 gunshot wounds, and his legs were obviously shredded. He had some abdomen problems with wounds, and yet this guy refuses treatment. Instead, this is the presence of mind that he now has, the responsibility of being a team and patrol leader. He organizes a defense. He redistributes ammunition. He coordinates airstrikes, coordinates artillery. All of this danger close within 50 meters of friendly lines of him and his team. And then he personally leads an assault while crawling, of course, because he's injured, under fire to cover his wounded Marine's extraction. Even at the LZ, the landing zone where the medevac helo comes in, he holds off enemy with both his handgun and his rifle. Now, once aboard this helo, he notices that it's pretty full. It's overloaded, and again, I'm about to describe another heroic act, a selfless act by Major Jim Capers. The helo was having some trouble taking off, and so then Major Capers decides that he's going to attempt to sacrifice himself by jumping off the helo so he can get airborne and thereby save his Marines, that they would be able to lift off, as well as the helo crew. The crew chief restrained him physically, mind you, and of course the helo struggled but went airborne, and he was able to evacuate those wounded Marines. His Marines, without a doubt, Hiram, they totally credit Major Capers with saving their lives. And Bull, correct me if I'm wrong here, but even Major Capers' war dog, King, unfortunately during that firefight took a fatal wound, and heroically again he made sure his dog was loaded on the aircraft before he was. That's kind of
100%.
Yeah,
So,
that's
Bull,
the individual we're talking about here, Hiram.
so I appreciate it. So, Bull, we've known each other for a bit. You want to piggyback on what we're at from what Brian's saying and where we're at today and why he should get the Medal of Honor? Before that, I met Major James Capers 4 years ago to be exact. Had him on a podcast first time. He was a difficult individual, but guess what? I got to know him. And the one thing I made a commitment to all 3 of us and to our viewers for him to get the Medal of Honor at all costs while he's still alive. The Marine Corps birthday is coming up, and it's going to be the 250th anniversary, the birthday of the Marine Corps. Our main objective right now, for all 3 of us viewers and everyone that's listening, is to be able to get the Marine Corps, the Medal of Honor, handed to James Capers, Major James Capers, while he's still alive, not after he passes. Bull, you want to elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, Hiram, I appreciate that. So there, the big thing to recognize, and just sort of to follow on where this our major left off, is that when Capers was finally medevaced, that Major General Bruno Hochmuth, the commanding general of 3rd Marine Division at the time, met with every single one of Capers' Marines and personally spoke with each one of them. And every single one of them told this amazing story of heroism. And General Hochmuth, in front of those Marines, actually went over, met with Major Capers and told him, he goes, I've never heard of anything so heroic, and we're going to ensure that you receive the Medal of Honor. And so you would have thought that that's the end of the story. Unfortunately, General Hochmuth died in a helicopter crash not long after that, and unfortunately with him, the Medal of Honor was lost. What happened was, instead, Major Capers' officer in charge, who had only joined the unit 3 days prior and was not at Phu Loc and not aware of Major Capers' heroism, ended up giving Major Capers the usual, if you will, end of tour award for a lieutenant who served heroically in Vietnam. And he awarded him the Bronze Star with V, or the Bronze Star for Valor. And it sat, and that was pretty much it. Major Capers never questioned it. Nobody ever questioned it. Nobody really even knew. And it wasn't until 2006 that Major General Williams, who was the acting commanding general of 2nd Marine Division, went to one of the reunions for Team Broad-Minded, all these Force Reconnaissance Marines, and they were telling these stories of heroism, and they were shocked that Capers had not received the Medal of Honor. Now, many of Capers' missions were classified. A lot of the missions that the Force Recon Marines during Vietnam were doing, they were hunter-killer missions. They were doing deep dives into enemy territory. A lot of these missions were classified. And they went and dug up all these missions that were now declassified, and they went through all of this. And General Williams, after he reviewed all of this, he came to the same conclusion as Major General Hockmuth, that Capers deserves the Medal of Honor. That was then turned over to his follow-on, which was Commanding General Gaskin, who brought that up to the commander of 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, who was Lieutenant General Stalder, and together they brought that up to Headquarters Marine Corps. It went through all sorts of administrative issues, but at the end of the day, it went to an upgrade award board or assessment, as opposed to a Medal of Honor board. And it was upgraded, and they upgraded his Bronze Star to the Silver Star. And many people ask, well, why did that happen? And we don't have all the answers, but we believe one of the possible answers is that the highest you can upgrade an award for an end of tour award, which is what that Bronze Star was, is a Silver Star. The Medal of Honor simply is not an end of tour award. And so that went up, and General Conway endorsed it and went up, and he received the Silver Star as he was being inducted into the Special Operations Commando Hall of Honor. And the question always was, well, why didn't he get the Medal of Honor? And the bottom line was, it wasn't properly assessed. And the key things are, number one, the witness statements. And when you compare the witness statements to all Capers' actions compared to other Marines who rightfully were awarded the Medal of Honor, Capers was right there. He met or exceeded the standards across the board. And the other key component is the battlefield commanders. And every one of Capers' commanders recommended him for the Medal of Honor. So it's caught in this administrative, bureaucratic morass right now where people are saying, well, we need more information. And the bottom line is, there's no more information necessary. The evidence is clear. He deserves the Medal of Honor. The leaders need to lead and just move the bureaucrats out of the way and make this happen.
Well, thank you, Bull. So, Brian, based on what Bull's saying, you know it from being a sergeant major in the Marine Corps and in the infantry. What's your take on what Bull's saying, and how is it that is impacting you for others to understand what's going on?
Well, when and thanks for that description, Bull. That's really going to sort of, I think, further define for the viewers to make their own judgment, and and it all makes sense. And I'm sure, Hiram, you'll attach the comparison
chart.
Yep. That link. That's a telltale sign, a golden nugget that clearly shows with this pictorial of what Major Capers' actions were in comparison to those of his battle buddies and peers in that same time frame, and it was a telltale sign for me. So when that became visible, and I came abreast of this through social media of some of Bull's postings, I needed to get involved. This goes back to the old adage that all three of us know: our oath of enlistment has no expiration date. And this, of course, led discussion, dialogue with Bull and I. How can I help? Blah blah blah, and sort of just kind of came up with the idea of maybe I can get other senior enlisted involved in this too, because if they heard the same story and read the same facts that I have, I know they're going to be a little agitated, much agitated as to why this never transpired, regardless of whether he's a Marine or not. This is an American warrior. And so the service branch, although Major Capers is a Marine, this could have happened to any service member. The rule is sort of a DOD kind of rule, and it would have been somebody else's issue if he were a Navy SEAL or an Army Green Beret. So that's part of my inclusion of the other service branches. And as you know, this letter to the President of the United States was developed. So first and foremost, that letter to our Commander-in-Chief, Hiram, what isn't to showcase or bring attention to anyone other than Major Capers. The right people needed to hear about this guy's extreme bravery and tenacity while fighting for our country. The president's certainly one of those people, and why he hasn't received the Medal of Honor is, again, a lingering question that someone needs to tell us, because from all the evidence and witness statements we've seen, we meaning all the senior enlisted that signed that letter, it's quite obvious. So I gathered support with my own peer group across all 6 branches. I mean, can you imagine? Space Force found out about this and chimed in and said, "Oh yeah, I'm in." And so it's not only the 6 branches of service, but from like a myriad of backgrounds, all retired but experienced and involved in the awards process, and that was a key part of this as well. I wanted them looking at it from a lens that could say, if I were sitting on this awards board, yeah, there'd be no doubt that I'd vote for, this level of award.
So I appreciate it, Brian. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So if you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it. Episode 152, and this is the subject line today. How are we going to get Major James Capers the Medal of Honor? And if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn Live, episode 152, I appreciate it. So, Bull, based on what Brian's saying, right, we've talked on the backstory. We've done quite a few social media marketing strategies, and you've been going to the Hill, talking to Congress, talking to the senators, and you finally have Major Capers. Well, we have on a video. So I don't want to take away the thunder, but walk us through that process of what's been going on your end, on the boots on the ground, please.
Hiram, I apologize. I think there's a technical issue on my end. Having trouble hearing you. Please repeat that question.
Sure. Based on everything that's going on this past couple years, right, that we talked about from a social media marketing strategy, we've been able to work with you, and you've been the boots on the ground to be able to go to the Hill to partition the case of Major James Capers. You've been able to also talk to the senators, prior service, to get endorsements. Can you walk us through that process, please?
Got it. So I think you're asking about what we've been doing on Capitol Hill, and I hope you can hear me well. The bottom line is that one of the issues per law is that the President of the United States has to award the Medal of Honor within 5 years of the actions of the warrior. That's per Title 10. And it's intended to be a good thing, where this way somebody doesn't wait their entire life to receive the recognition they deserve. The challenge is if it goes beyond that 5 years, and now we're talking about 58 years with Major Capers, that if it doesn't happen, that now all of a sudden the law withholds this president from awarding the Medal of Honor. And so we know the president has reviewed this, and we believe from everything we've heard, the president's supportive. We know Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is supportive. And so the Congress now has to introduce a bill into the House. It has to go through the House. It has to go through the Senate. And then the president has to sign and turn this into law, that the president can award this beyond the 5 years. And so that's where we have a bill that was introduced, H.R. 3377, and this came on the back of 47 congressmen contacting the president, including 6 senators, all of whom said Major Capers is deserving of the Medal of Honor. And so as soon as that bill gets through, then the president, I believe, I'm 100% confident, will be ready, willing, and now able to award Major Capers the Medal of Honor he deserves.
Well, thank you, Bull. So, Brian, based on what Bull's been saying, what's your take and how can we be able to support him as well to be able to do that? You see it from an enlisting standpoint because Bull was a prior enlisted in the officer. He's been able to network with the people on the Hill. What's your take on the backside of what you're doing as well, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're hoping that the 132 names on that letter will churn some action and grab some attention from some of the leadership, both in Congress and the Pentagon and the White House, and help influence or shape folks who are serving as, let's say, obstructionists and wanted to be part of the problem and not the solution. And we're hoping that the language in our letter was strong enough that we're taking a stand. And this has got nothing to do with politics. It's got nothing to do with enlisted getting involved in officers' matters. This is about an American warrior who has performed exceptionally well in combat and is deserving of our nation's highest award. So besides that letter, I think it's time for our own internally, our Marine Corps leadership to step into it. We obviously talked about some unintentional procedural errors that have taken place here, and those errors can be corrected. It just needs the support and full force from our commandant that we've looked into this a little more in detail. It was intended to go into for a Medal of Honor. General Hockmith wasn't able to carry that out. A mistake was made that it was submitted as a end of tour. And so, when you wipe and erase all of that away and you look at his actions and actions alone, again, I refer you back to the comparison chart. You can't help but look at this Hiram and say, this Marine is deserving of our nation's highest award, the Medal of Honor.
So the biggest thing that I learned from meeting the major is that I lived to hear that he was battlefield commissioned from a staff NCO to a second lieutenant during Vietnam when the officer in charge was killed as well. So, Bull, you want to elaborate more on that?
Hiram, I apologize. For some reason, when you're talking, it's coming through garbled. Say it again, please. I apologize.
So can you elaborate on the battlefield commission for the major during the course and when he was in tour of Vietnam?
Again, I heard something about battlefield in Vietnam. I apologize.
Commission. Yep. So he got promoted on the field.
Okay, this battlefield commission. Thank you. I would say, it's amazing that, part of the reason that the sergeant major jumped in is that he recognized that, here was a staff sergeant and he had been in multiple conflicts throughout Vietnam and had seen a lot of combat, and he was a warrior through and through. And pretty much there's multiple actions to which he would have been deserving of the Medal of Honor. And at a certain point, his command recognized this and they promoted him, took him from staff sergeant and gave him his second lieutenant bars. His officer in charge time actually gave him his own second lieutenant bars, promoted him, and he was going to move out of the unit. And Capers requested to stay in combat with his Marines, and they allowed him to. And he stayed in command of his Marines, and his Marines loved him, and they appreciated that. And so it was only 5 months prior to his actions at Phu Loc. And so what's really interesting is that here's a staff sergeant who just happened to be wearing second lieutenant bars. He didn't go to officer candidate school. He didn't go to the basic school. He didn't go to infantry officer course. Here was a staff NCO leading his Marines who just happened to be wearing second lieutenant bars. And he performed exceedingly well by all standards. So they were very fortunate to have him stick around, and we were fortunate to have him maintain his rank, because many times there were battlefield commissions that were awarded in Vietnam and then they were rescinded after the war. He maintained his rank and then ended up retiring as a major.
So that's awesome. So Brian, based on the Battlefield Commission, right? And then can you expand more on his tour duties of what he's done and how good of a swimmer he was and things of that nature, please?
Yeah, I can certainly touch some of the wave tops and then ask Bull to chime in because he's very familiar with his past career as well. When you all were talking, it reminded me that this Vietnam wasn't Major Capers or then Staff Sergeant Capers his first run at seeing or being being exposed to combat. I mean, he joined the Corps back in I think 1956, and he was deployed shortly thereafter overseas, and I believe he said he went to Lebanon with his unit, and there
Exactly.
there was an evacuation, a neo-op that was taking place to evacuate American citizens, and that obviously brought some resistance from either Syrians or I forget who the adversary was, but Major Capers goes on to describe of how he needed or had to engage. It was kill or be killed, and how he needed to engage along with his men to protect the mission and, as well as accomplish it. So by the time he got to Vietnam, 10 or so years later, he already had some experience under his belt as a younger Marine.
So thank you. So maybe you can relay this message to Bull and ask him to finish what you just stated as well, if he can't hear me, as far as what else has the Major done as far as his history and his legacy, Bull.
Absolutely. I was able to hear that one finally. So the bottom line is that Capers he wanted to excel everywhere he went, and part of the challenge was to become a force reconnaissance Marine, and he ended up going through the training. It was tough. It was challenging. And one of the things was that he had to go through scuba school, and there was a question as to whether or not he would ever even be able to get through. And there are some people that didn't even want to put him through scuba school. But at the same time, the Marine Corps was supportive of everything he wanted to do. And they gave him that opportunity, and he went to scuba school. And not only did he graduate, but he was the honor graduate because he was an amazing swimmer. And so everything he's done throughout his life, he's excelled. And he always says, his father told him, if there's 10 men going up a hill or going up a flight of stairs, you have to believe that you will be the one person that will finish on top. And that's what's always been his driving force behind everything he did. So there's no quit in this man. No matter what happens, he's going to see the mission through. He's going to give 100%. And he epitomizes not just the essence of honor, courage, and commitment, but he epitomizes the warrior ethos. Everything that we drive to bring to our Marines. And I know, Hiram, you were a drill instructor, so was the Sergeant Major. And so these were things that you constantly were trying to drive into the soul and spirit of every one of our Marines. And Capers epitomizes that. There's no better role model for any Marine, any warrior, or quite frankly, for any American. He's truly an American hero.
So for me, this is what I learned from being around the Major, right? I spent some time with him. Right? During the recon challenge, we spent some time, escort him around, had a lot of things. And, the biggest compliment that he gave me and he gave Josh Negron and myself, I can consider you guys my sons because my son died in my arms, right? So to me, that was pretty profound when we're doing the recon challenge. Now, mind you, the guy was still very stern, but for him to even give that type of comparison, it compelled me to finish this mission and align with you guys, with Brian and yourself, Bull, to be able to showcase the history of this man, this legacy, which is very important. People don't understand that there's some significance on this era. We all know that during the time of the Vietnam War, that was the hush, don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. They were spit upon and everything else. Here's a guy that I met him. He's a legend. He's been respected. I believe it's due time to be able to give his worth. What do you say, Brian?
No, I totally agree with that. He's more than just a role model. I'll tell you this: when I was collecting names for the letter, I primarily focus it on E9s because of the experience and awards board exposure. Hiram, there were E3s, E4s, corporal sergeants coming out the woodwork saying, "Put my name on a list." Reservists, active duty, of course. We couldn't entertain that for fear of some repercussions. Nonetheless, this is not just a senior enlisted thing. There's rank and file that support Major Capers receiving the Medal of Honor.
So, Bull, you went to the Hill. So you want to expand, unpack about the appointment, a very important moment during that time when you guys went to the Hill, got to meet Pete Hegseth. Can you elaborate on this? It's pretty much, I have a clip. I've shared it. It's like 42,000 views and everything, 2,000 shares. Can you share that moment? You were there, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the credit really needs to go to Frank Roberts and Robert Zachary, Big Zach. These two gentlemen escorted Major Capers up on the Hill for the Purple Heart ceremony. And right prior to that, the president was briefed, and many people realized what his actions were in Phu Loc and why he was deserving of the Medal of Honor. And they made sure that Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, stopped to talk with Major Capers. And what was interesting is, at first he didn't realize who he was, and he noticed that Capers had been awarded 3 Purple Hearts. And obviously, the Secretary of Defense was very respectful. It's like, wow, you got hit 3 times. And Frank Roberts goes, no, he got hit 19 times with 17 shrapnel wounds, 2 gunshot wounds. And I think the Secretary of Defense was a little taken aback. And that's when everybody explained that, this is Major Jim Capers, the man who's deserving of the Medal of Honor. And our understanding is that the Secretary of Defense has now taking this for action, and he's working this through the system to make sure that Major Capers receives what he deserves. Nobody's doing anything special for this individual. Nobody's trying to beat the system. It's just getting the man what he deserves.
I think so for myself, right, as a Vietnam, for the Major being a Vietnam vet, this is the last of the Mohicans, right? World War II. Let's go back. World War I. World War II, the Korean War, these veterans are passing on. The last veteran that was on Pearl Harbor just passed at 102. But my main thing right now is I think that people should understand that the Vietnam veterans paid a heavy price for that time during the 60s and 70s. And I think that his is a classic example, right, Brian, of why the Major should be in there, because we've both been in that time zone in the military, but you from a sergeant major perspective and leading the infantry, maybe people can understand it from your perspective of what's going on. If you would, please.
Yeah, you don't want to call it a dying breed, but we're all here temporarily. I mean, it's inevitable that we're gonna come and go, and we, of course, have found ourselves saying we stand on the shoulders of giants like Major Jim Capers. I don't think for 1 minute, while he's a living example of our warrior ethos, he's going to be a perpetual example of our warrior ethos. I mean, this will be for forevermore. This name and his reputation, his calmness and presence of mind under fire and in combat are things that need to be taught. I tell people all the time, Hiram, that while I may be lucky enough with just one, or fortunate enough, just one Purple Heart, the reason I'm still alive is because I was trained by NCOs who toured, did service in Vietnam. And although it was jungle warfare, and in Iraq, where I got hurt, was sort of a desert and urban environment, those tactical philosophies all apply. They meld together, and so things like I'd rather be uncomfortably alive than comfortably dead is a tactical principle that can literally save your life. Those are the things that people will remember Major Capers for the rest of their lives and their children and grandchildren as well. I want to touch on, Hiram, a misnomer. I think is important for your viewers to hear, because it's been said several times through my course of spreading the word here. We're going to get Major Capers a Medal of Honor. Yeah, in a way, but Major Capers got himself the Medal of Honor, and that's through his bravery and his actions in combat, saving the lives of his men, and that's solely, in some regard, this is our primary mission, but more importantly, and said another way, Hiram, this is our only mission, and that's to get him the Medal of Honor. And we're just doing that by advertising or bringing it to the attention for the folks. The actions are already justified, codified, and again, to your viewers, when you look at that comparison chart, Stevie Wonder could see that this is a no-brainer.
So here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. People could take a page out of this type of leadership from all three of us, right? We come from the same background as far as in the Marine Corps. We've done different things. But the biggest thing that people should take away from this is that the type of leadership, the personal leadership that we've been able to establish is that we're on a mission, right? This mission statement to get the Medal of Honor is well deserving because he is a hero, right? And the biggest thing is that people need to recognize that. And to today's society, with social media, with everything that's going on right now, people are forgetting to read books, right? He is a pinnacle of being a war hero for a number of reasons. He's been able to live for a purpose because he wants to see and receive that. It's our due diligence to be able to execute that. And then the biggest thing, correct, Bull, is to make sure that people know the Major's story and what else they can do to provide the support. What do you say, Bill? Hope you, Bull, let me know if you can hear me.
So the one thing I just want to tag on to Sergeant Major's comments, and I'm certain the Sergeant Major will agree, is another Marine Corps maxim, and that's if you're ever in a firefight, don't act like a pussy. You might live. And quite frankly, Capers epitomizes that. And this is where we've all seen in firefights, for those of us who served, there are those Marines that they get very calm and they engage and they understand what has to get done. And those are the warriors that carry the day, because by them maintaining their presence of mind, which Capers did, and one of the witness statements, Stanton, he said, they thought they were dead. That was it. And in the middle of this firefight, Capers is like, hell no, we're not dying on this trail here. And he goes, we're going to get out of here. And that sense of we're not going to die. We will survive. We're Marines. That's what carried the day. And this is where time and again, it's the will, it's the spirit. It's not the technology. It's not all the equipment, the weapons, anything else. It's, do you have the will, and can you break the will of the enemy? And so this is a part of where we stand strong behind Major Capers. And when we're fighting this, this is nothing compared to what he went through. So we continue to press. We pull long hours. We work with a lot of great people. I want to mention Brooks Tucker, an amazing individual who's been leveraging a lot of his contacts. We've got the Black Ops group. We have Triple Nickel. They're involved. We have all these other individuals. I mentioned Zach, Ruben. We've got Guys Simmons. There's so many people have come together in a unified intent. And there's no control. There's no command over this. It's just everybody's focused on this end state. So when you ask what other people can do, there's a petition on UAP's website, United American Patriots, and you can search United American Patriots, Capers, and it'll come up. You can add your name. We have a couple of thousand people
Put it in
already
the chat.
signed on to this.
Just put it in
Perfect.
the chat. But you guys, whatever, sorry to interrupt you, but if you got something that you want to share with the viewers, put it in the chat and then let them know so they can follow up on it. They can hit link on. Go ahead. Sorry about that, Bull.
I'll see if I can do that, Bull, while you're talking.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you can pull up the link and then just paste it in there. And then the other thing is, I posted tons of information on my LinkedIn page. People are welcome to go there, or on the Facebook page. We pinned the comparison document. Another big thing is, if you want details that support the comparison document, there's an article we put together, 2 heroes, 1 Medal of Honor, why? And we've actually pulled excerpts from the witness statements that verify all of the information here. And so you really get a true essence from firsthand accounts what happened in Phu Loc. So it's sort of like taking the red pill. Once you see that, the follow-on actions are, everybody has a network, everybody has a connection, everybody has access to their representatives. Contact your congressman, contact your senators, contact your local representatives. Make sure the media knows about this. Get the word out. And it's HR 3377. That's House Resolution 3377, which is the standalone bill to ensure that Congress passes that for the president. And let the Congress know we're ready, willing, and able to make this happen. All you have to do is pass this bill, and the president will award Major Capers the Medal of Honor.
So a lot of people don't understand that. Here's the thing. If you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it. You can look up Bull on LinkedIn, and Brian as well as Bataglia. You can both see them. If you guys can put your LinkedIn profiles, if not, you can share it later on. They're both on LinkedIn, but here's the biggest thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's important to have a purpose and do something right. This is the right thing to do because of a number of reasons. I've taken it personal. Bull has taken it personal, and for sure, Brian has taken it personal. We've all taken it personal because we believe in this. And for this type of era right now, where we're at today in 2025, going to 2026, people don't understand that because they haven't gone through that process from the 60s all the way up there. You can read about it, but you need to embrace it. So, Brian, what do you say about this as well?
Yeah, these procedural errors can certainly be corrected. All it takes is our own leadership to engage. Move the naysayers out of the way, and apply some common sense to this. And so it's one of the reasons why we went to the president, because we know that this commander-in-chief applies common sense to problem solving, and Pete Hegseth can do the same as a service member himself. Look, Major Capers, like I said earlier, he is a living example of our warrior ethos, and if I was in a fight with him, I would feel very, very safe. Not just that the mission is going to be accomplished, that he would bring me back alive. That's how tactically competent this Marine officer is. He's got a presence of mind and his calmness under fire. His leadership at Phu Loc, hands down, justified and on record, even to include his own battlefield commanders. This isn't just about an award, Hiram. It's about keeping our promise to every warrior that their actions are going to be judged fairly. The window now to do this thing, as we've been talking about, is closing pretty fast. So if I had one last statement to say to our leadership, all the way up through the President of the United States, I'd say let's place that Medal of Honor around his neck while he's still here to feel that cloth, and know that his nation appreciates the actions of those who go in harm's way on behalf of the very country that he loves so much.
You know what I take from the Major is this, man. He still has that presence that's there. I remember when I was spending some quality time with him and escorting, I could just feel his presence, the way he would look at you, the way he would speak to you. And I take it as, that's a standard that has been long forgotten for a number of reasons. The biggest thing that people don't understand is we're maintaining the standards for a number of reasons. If we believe something is right, especially in our branch, no offense to the other branches, in the Marine Corps, we're going to collaborate and execute. We're going to find a mission statement. We're going to delegate. We're going to make sure we complete the task and make sure that we finish the mission at all times, at the right time. So with that being said, Bull, what do you think, how important this mission is for us to get the Major this Medal of Honor?
Great question, Hiram. And the Sergeant Major touched on it, that if we can't award someone like Major Capers, who's so clearly deserving, the question is, how many other warriors are being overlooked? And so this is truly a battle for Major Capers and to correct an injustice where the facts are indisputable. But it's also to make sure that as we're evaluating our warriors, that we're actually giving them the recognition they deserve. And I've heard so many times as we were trying to elevate Major Capers Award, it's like, well, for every one individual who receives an award, there's at least 5, 10, or 20 who didn't get the award they deserve. Well, that's not leadership. If you recognize that's the problem, then what are you doing to fix it? That's surrender. That's giving in, saying, yeah, the system sucks. I don't accept that. I know you don't. Certainly the Sergeant Major doesn't. That our responsibility as leaders, when we see that there's something wrong, is to come in and fix it. And this is where people are going to look at this chart and they're going to say, well, you can't math your way into the Medal of Honor. That, it's not just about the facts. There's a lot of, personal opinion that comes in, and it's not all objective. There's a lot of subjectivity. Okay, then what is that subjectivity? It can't simply be, well, I didn't like Capers, or I don't feel that he deserves the Medal of Honor. There has to be some substance. And I've heard all sorts of arguments as to why Capers shouldn't get the Medal of Honor, or what mis or disinformation's out there. And the bottom line is that none of it is substantive. There's nothing that takes away from him deserving the Medal of Honor. Moreover, his officer in charge, who actually left 3 days before the before the Battle of Phu Loc, who actually was his lieutenant, promoted him from sergeant to staff sergeant, was going to promote him to gunnery sergeant. They ended up giving him battlefield commission instead. When he personally wrote a letter in support of Major Capers receiving the Medal of Honor, he says, to understand what an incredible warrior Major Capers is, you would have had to have served in combat with him, as I have. And so this is Ken Jordan. He was a captain at the time. He was the officer in charge who turned it over to Captain Mooney. And there was no question in his mind that Capers was a phenomenal individual. And his Marines, I talked to his platoon sergeant, Sergeant Yerman, before he passed. And I asked him, I said, look, we all think Capers is amazing, but do you really believe that he's deserving of the Medal of Honor? And Sergeant Yerman said, no, sir, he's deserving of 2. And what ended up happening, he then took me down a whole other path, talking about another mission where they tried to liberate a POW camp and his heroic actions there. So his Marines, there's no question in their mind that Capers is deserving. So when all of a sudden you have bureaucrats who are sitting in the Pentagon, some of whom have never even heard a shot fired in anger, saying, no, we don't think this is administratively correct, or there's no new information, we can't take another. The battlefield commander's recommendation is the only other thing that should matter in addition to the witness statements. That's it. And all of that's lined up. They've all signed on. So who are these individuals now to say that Capers doesn't deserve the Medal of Honor?
That's a great feedback. Brian, we talked about prior to this podcast, what's the sense of urgency, right? Why are we doing this now? And Bull has explained a lot of things, but I want your personal take on why we decided to do this podcast right away. Why is it? And can you explain that to the audience, please?
Well, I can. Let me also touch on one of Bull's points. Very, very, very valid. With so it gives a message to your viewers, Hiram, if they want to. Or when they go to either the senator or representative, I think a prepositional phrase that should be in that engagement is there's no new information needed. The information is all of his acts that have already been justified at Phu Loc, and to say um, that we need more new information in order to upgrade is I think is very lame, and it takes away it's punishing and denying a warrior like Major Capers from receiving his warranted Medal of Honor, should I say, that we're allowing process to get in the way, and so that's the buzz line is there's no new information needed. Go back to his original actions, and you can clearly see that it is warranted that he wears our nation's highest award. Okay, sorry for that segue. What was the question you wanted to hear, Hiram?
That's fine. So I'll go back to Bull.
You nailed it.
You nailed it. So Bull, let's talk about what is the timeline. What's our main objective between now and the Marine Corps birthday? If you want to handle that, please.
Yeah. So this is to the point. What's I've heard many times before. Well, patience is a virtue. It's not one that I've embraced ever. However, I go more with time is of the essence and why. And this has been touched upon. Major Capers is 80. He's going to be 88 this month on the 25th. And at that point, every day is a blessing that we have him. We actually almost lost him just about a month ago. He went into the intensive care unit, and it was frustrating that wasn't enough to motivate our leadership to say, wow, we have to move, and we have to move now. This individual, waiting for him to receive this award posthumously is an insult. It's a slap in his face. He needs to receive this award while, number one, he can appreciate it, but moreover, that he can communicate this to our country. And he has to be this living embodiment that, first of all, he loves America. He loves the Marine Corps. And despite all the challenges that he faced, despite the delay in him receiving the honor he deserves, he loves America. He was recently on Fox News, and he was asked, what's your guidance for all Americans? And his response was, serve your country. I mean, this is a man who will not step away from his patriotism. And so our focus right now is for him to be awarded the Medal of Honor in time to wear it for our 250th birthday on 10 November. It would be the perfect example, the capstone of our warrior ethos, to have Major Capers awarded that medal, receive the attention he deserves, receive the recognition he deserves, and be the showcase for all of the birthdays across the country and the world, because everywhere there's two Marines, they're celebrating our Marine Corps birthday.
Well, thank you, Bull. Closing comments, Brian. We're going to go with you. Don't worry if you go into segue. I got time. Close it and leave it on the table as well. Go ahead.
Well, I'd say, our not just our primary mission, but our sole and only mission is to do whatever we can to exhaust every effort that our good friend and American hero, Major Jim Capers, is awarded a Medal of Honor that he so rightfully deserves, and that is to be done in short order. If our president has to jump in and exercise whatever authority he can to make this happen, I and 133 others that are on that letter fully support that. If that happens to embarrass someone for not acting upon it, so be it. But we try to teach in leadership the expertise about problem solving. But I'd say we should spend a little bit more time on problem prevention. And while this was unintentional, that the end of tour was written, it's not too late. It's never too late to correct it. And so we we are sitting on the edge of our seats, awaiting some sort of response from our commander-in-chief, from our Secretary of Defense, that once they look at the comparison chart, especially read that article of 2 heroes, 1 Medal of Honor. Again, Hiram, it quickly shows you that this Marine should have been wearing this medal 58 years ago.
That's awesome.
And
Bull.
Hiram, if I could just jump in, there's a few comments that just came up. They're interesting. They're saying, oh, well, age shouldn't be the reason. And what are the reason? No, he should have received it in 1967. And the actions are why he deserves it. So why is it happening now? Because this is the fight we're fighting now. But realistically, it should have happened in 67. It should have happened in 2006, 2009, 2010. We've had congressmen elevating this for decades. So the reason is not his age, but the reality is that he's not going to be with us much longer. So now is the full court press to make sure he receives the award that he should have received in 67. And to those who are questioning his actions, as the Sergeant Major said, review the comparison chart, review his actions, review the witness statements. And once you see that, you won't be asking why now. You'll say, why didn't he get it before? That's the right question.
So with that being said, you got 45 seconds to close it and leave it hanging and leave it on the table. Go ahead, Bull.
Yeah, bottom line is get on board, fight the right fight. It's a justified fight. We're standing on solid ground. The facts are the facts. And at the end of the day, Major Capers deserves the Medal of Honor. All the rest of this is noise. He deserves the Medal of Honor, period.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Brian, it's nice having you here. Bull, we've been having a great relationship. And all this has happened because we've been networking on LinkedIn. Not only because we're in Marines, but we're using the social media platform. And the thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, if you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it. If you want to reach out to Bull, Gurfein, and Bryan Bataglia, they're on LinkedIn Live. They're on LinkedIn. And we're going to be sharing this. So if you want to see this rebroadcast, go to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn Perspective, episode 152, LinkedIn Live. Submit to the channel, share it, like it, tag it, and we'll be able to. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bull. I know we've been able to do this, but I think an hour just solidifies what we need to be at. We're going to keep it very simple. Our main objective is to get the Major's Medal of Honor for the Marine Corps birthday. Stand by. Simplify, always beside you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and subscribe. Stand by.